Badminton has been in the doldrums in recent years, with the State League being disbanded about 8 years ago and being reinstated this year. And since its reintroduction, the game has gone through the roof in country areas, with registrations tripling. This year, 6 teams comprise the State League: Easts, Wests, Norths and Souths, along with City and Central, and are made up of players from Sydney and Newcastle. One of the important aspects of the league is that each team is also made up of experienced and junior players, as well as one lady per team of 4. Today's round of matches pitted East against West, and these two teams, along with City, are fighting for supremacy. East are leading the comp, but City and West are right on their hammer. A slip by East with 1 round remaining could be fatal. Play will continue until about 6:30 tonight.
A familiar sight for emergency services at Bulahdelah. 7 kilometres north of the town, the semi slewed across the highway. It cannoned through an Armco railing, coming to rest on the edge of a steep embankment. Police say Neeson died instantly, his body trapped inside the wrecked cabin. A delicate job for rescue services, a crane holding the wreck in position as Neeson's body was released. Then, the task of wreckage removal. The semis load huge bales of waste paper strewn across the road. Evening traffic slowed to a crawl, 1 lane closed as salvage crews completed the clean-up operation. Anthony Griffiths, NBN News. The Valor Smokehouse opened its doors today, producing smoked meats and small goods under the Blue Gum label. The smokehouse finally got the go-ahead after some objections from environmentalists. Apart from meats, the owner and operator, Andrew John Andrews, is also producing handbags and belts with eel skin. Andrew is already selling meat to Sydney's Centrepoint Tavern, and is he happy?
To me, it's an exciting project. It hasn't been done before. It will be done. We've just got to persevere with it. And persevere we will.
On the 15th of March last year, Harry Troy's career came tumbling down at Cessnock. That fall kept the brilliant hoop out of racing until yesterday, when he resumed his career at Corindi in the 3rd. And yes, you guessed it, fairy tales do happen. And Troy's luck could keep improving in tomorrow's Howard Haulage Willow Tree Cup at Corindi, where he has the ride on Ashen Princess. But we have plumb for last start winner Rickety Nick in what should be a great race. Missing key men Paul Kuiper and Terry Dozier, the only answer to the Kings' big squad was to run and gun, and the Falcons opened brilliantly to lead by 12 points during the first quarter. Jason Joins was showing also that he was keen to take on Utoff and crew inside. However, no panic for the Kings. McClary with a dunk, and then they stepped up the pace. Enter Dwayne McLean to stamp his authority on the match, and the complexion of proceedings had changed in the twinkling of an eye. The Falcons' defence fell apart, and the Kings scored at will, Ambrosius coming off the bench to hit 20. And even the man mountain Dean Utoff was acting like a point guard. The final quarter was the double max show. Final score, Sydney 134, Newcastle 102. Lake's backline worked overtime today. This try to Quinton after good lead-up play and a smart pass from Matt Harris. The Seagulls were in again, this time Walters with a brilliant cut-out pass to Brett Botham, and the centre had little trouble in notching 4 points. Lakes finished off in the second half, along the back line to a waiting Gary Bray, and the youngster didn't have a hand laid on him as he fell over the line to score. Solo bikes returned to the Motordrome today, and the Division 2 final was a classic and wasn't decided until the final turn. The Tooheys final was a ripper with 2 starts because of falls. And in the restart, it was all Tony Primer.
Dixon Little was just 16 when he joined the railways. He retired in 1957 after 50 years as a draftsman, engineer and inspector covering a golden age of Australian rail. It was a time of great challenges. Huge washouts were common on the Northern Line. Then there was the job of cleaning up after the Maitland flood, a metre of mud choking the platform. The event that sticks in his mind most is the 1944 disaster at Hawkesbury when the train he was on cut a bus in half, killing 17 people. State Rail hasn't forgotten Dixon Little. Regional General Manager Bruce Hall presented him with a gold watch and a history of the railways when he joined the family celebrations. It's a history that Dixon Little lived and loved.
I enjoyed every minute of it. I used to do all the work and get a good result.
And just to show he hasn't lost touch, Mr Little has a few views of his own on the debate over the future of the Newcastle rail line. After all, he recommended that the line should extend through the city to the beach.
There's such a lot of people in the summertime and that sort of thing. They come right to the beach. They're right on in the net. Just step out into the water, you might as well say.
Who knows? Maybe it's worth a second thought.
Over 200 competitors from Queensland, the ACT and the east coast of New South Wales flew around the dirt track at Curry in search of a state championship medal. And the way the youngsters rode, there's no doubting the quality of talent available in the country. Brock Parks lives at Maitland and is a member of the Curry Motorcycle Club, and he was in devastating form. Brock won the 8 to 11 years 50cc title, backed up to win the 10 years 80cc crown, and in the 10 to 12 years 60cc event was an excellent third. And it was also a big weekend for the Daniel had a first and second in the 15 years 80cc and 125cc class respectively, and Jamie Stafer was second in the 13 years 80cc. For the Littlies, or over 7s modified auto, Sean Weissman of Curry was crowned the New South Wales champion.
The winding down of the Rockley, formerly Nationals Textiles plant at Katara, and the closure of Gissings at Maitland and Depict Fashions at Western, along with others on the Central Coast, have made 500 people redundant so far this year, and there are more to come. Part of the government's tariff reduction policy is to provide job allowances and retraining for those people. And that's where the TAFE system comes in, joining forces with the CES.
Most of these people would have spent a long time working in various factories around the area. Those jobs now have gone, and what we're looking at is trying to give people new directions through retraining.
So far, 240 people have begun basic instruction to determine their future possibilities. Once they are assessed, more detailed training will be provided in a particular sphere.
The sort of things that some of the people are coming up with so far are retraining into the hospitality industry where there are jobs, and also moving into the clerical field as well.
And the help doesn't end with the retraining. The government is offering wage subsidies for up to 2 years for employers who take on the retrainees.
The Department of Housing plans to build 2 separate lots of one-bedroom aged persons units on this side here. The problem is sections of the development applications don't meet council's standard building requirements. One hiccup involves the building of a pergola for use as a community meeting facility. Council believes the meeting place should be an enclosed room that will protect aged people from inclement weather. The other problem is the application doesn't provide for private open space with each dwelling. Council building standards require a space of at least 4 by 6 metres be provided per dwelling. Under State Planning Policy number 5 for aged housing, Council can't refuse the application without the authority of the Minister for Planning, Robert Webster. Mayor Doug Carley says the Minister has rejected Council's request to refuse the applications, therefore Council is obliged to approve the developments. Council has described the situation as ridiculous. It says if it were a private developer making a building application, it has the authority to refuse it. But because it's state government, Council has no recourse. The Mayor says Council has experienced this frustrating situation before, and now it's time things changed.
It's time now that people understood the position that our Council is in, and we seek their support to stand behind us and try to do something about it, because it's just not working out.
The plan is to more than double the size of a 2,000-head piggery at Parkville, 8 kilometres north of Scone, and then build a processing plant handling up to 600,000 pigs for the international ham and pork market. But neighbouring farmers say the piggery is already too much on the nose.
The place absolutely stinks. We wind up our own windows and people further up close up.
According to Peter Hodges, underground water could also be polluted with effluent and runoff if the piggery is enlarged. But the Scone Council is keen on the plan, as is the state government, which has fast-tracked it, offering substantial tax incentives. There is even Prime Ministerial approval, Paul Keating's family company Pluron putting in $400,000. Mr Keating saying he's proud to invest in Australian agriculture. Realising they're up against some tall political timber, locals have formed a protest group, Parkville Environmental Watch, or PEW, and they say they'll fight this battle to the end.
We're in this for the long haul. We're not going to let these fellas pull the wool over our eyes.
Australian company Brown & Hatton is sharing the $80 million venture with a Danish group. A spokesman for Brown & Hatton said his company will work within strict pollution rules. An EIS study is underway to prove the project is environmentally friendly. He said if it is approved, it will produce 200 jobs for Scone. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Harwood Island School has long been regarded a school of excellence, with teachers and students the recipients of many statewide awards. Classes revolve around the environment, with students running their own healthy tuck shop and recycling business. The school's natural environment is brought into the classroom, with teachers applying students' natural skills to the teaching of basic subjects such as mathematics, science and art. Now teachers from all along the coast are taking a lesson out of Harwood's book.
We're hoping that teachers will get a lot of ideas from this course and take them back and implement them or adapt them and modify them and use them in their own schools.
The program at Harwood Island was originally designed by parents and staff and has grown with the eager participation of students.
While it was the 18th time that the men have contested the Kingscliff Invitational Pairs and the 4th time the event's been held for women, it was the first time that both competitions had been conducted together. The final matched Commonwealth gold medalists Ian Schuback and Trevor Morris against South Australians Ian Taylor and John Noonan. Schuback, now a resident of the Gold Coast, was on target from his first bowl. And so was his partner, Trevor Morris. And it was one of the tightest finals in the history of the competition. Morris and Schuback took out the event 17-15. They got one shot on the last end to hold out a determined finish by Taylor and Noonan. In the ladies' final played this morning, Monique Murray and Eunice Heading of the Sunshine Coast defeated Pam Ellis and Dorothy Roach of Sydney 26 shots to 15.
In the under-18s, Lakes got out to an early lead before West hit back with a fairly soft try after good lead-up work. Adam Richardson decided to take things into his own hands, and a barging 40-metre run saw him close to the line. The defence fell off and he was over to score. Lakes put it beyond doubt when snappy half Craig Kamali darted from the scrum base, and it was good night. The trophy on the way to the Seagulls cabinet. And in the President's Cup, Lakes handed Waratah a 38-12 hammering. Brendan George was instrumental in this try, his magnificent pass finding Mark Gallagher close to the line, and the goals were in. Waratah scored a super try, their backline slipping into top gear, and Craig Fogg sent winger Drew Verco on a run for the line, and he didn't let his teammates down. But Lakes stepped up a gear, Robert Atherton's basketball pass finding Aaron Watt, and Lakes were home.
A flickering fire looks very inviting, but its warming glow can be dangerous. A fire can be burning in the chimney without anyone knowing. Such was the case for Mrs Claire MacDonald, a resident of the Newcastle suburb of Broadmeadow. Around 10 last night, while sitting in the lounge room watching TV, she was alerted to a fire in her chimney by passers-by.
The fire was still going all right. There was nothing in here to indicate that there was anything wrong outside.
Mrs MacDonald's fire was one of 4 in the Hunter in the last 24 hours. Regional District Commander John Craig says the outcome could easily have been worse.
From the combustible material that builds up in the chimney, it then radiates through that brickwork and into the timber bearers, and the fire can be unnoticed for many hours before it actually can break out and be a major disaster.
Generally, chimney fires are caused by 2 main factors.
The incorrect installation of the flue of the chimney being very close to timber, and also the build-up in the chimneys over years.
The solution, annual cleaning and maintenance. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Trevor Grandin today packed up his personal possessions from Narrabri Council chambers. Last night's council meeting voted to suspend the acting Shah engineer in a close 7-5 vote.
He failed to generally serve council in a satisfactory manner and in accordance with the terms of his appointment, and knowingly and deliberately acted in a fashion which was contrary to council's interest and has made public confidential council documents, knowing that in doing so he was acting in his own interest and against those of council's.
Mr Grandin now has the right to appeal the decision. The suspension is likely to be just as controversial as the decision on February the 18th to suspend Shire Clerk Sess Cotton, engineer Jeff Bickford and Storeman Warwick Armstrong for alleged breaches of the council's code of conduct. Their cases are still before the Industrial Commission and have been the subject of an inquiry by the New South Wales Ombudsman, who spent 2 days last week in Narrabri interviewing councillors, staff and businesses. Proposals to exchange 3.5 hectares of private land owned by developer Montara for this 23.8 hectare stretch of Crown land north of Lennox Head have been bandied around for years. But now the public has been given until June the 30th to comment on the proposal. Its opponents today staged a rally claiming the wetland area is a rare habitat and should not be sold off.
This land, which is very valuable, ecologically valuable land, and the habitat of endangered species, is in danger of being sold off to a developer who gave apparently donations to the National Party, and it may be cleared and destroyed.
They're not making any more land like this. This land is very important environmentally. Plus, there shouldn't be any special deals done for developers to put golf courses on Crown land.
But the developers remain unfazed by the opposition. They say their plans to turn the area into a botanical park and golf links will have a positive effect and make only marginal changes to the area.
Some fauna will be affected and some flora will be affected, but only to the extent that they aren't perceived by the zoning of this land to be of significance.
There's been a phone book fracas. Everyone's jumped on the book bin bandwagon. At a service station in the Newcastle suburb of The Junction, the bin was full, but that did not stop donations. Well, that's all very well and good, but manager Val Woodman is at her wit's end. It would appear her book muncher has bitten off a bit more than it can chew.
Found them on the pavement, sort of, where people have got to walk. It was just, as you can imagine, it was just one big mess.
A weekend of rain turned the phone books into a mountain of papier-mâché, and there was more to come today. The next collection isn't until Thursday, so now a plea from a besieged service station manager. Fair go on the phone books.
I don't really like to fend them off, but you got to try and get the place tidy as well.
Anthony Griffiths, NBN News.
After that disastrous mid-season slump which threatened their 1992 campaign, the Knights have answered their critics in the best possible manner. A couple of wins and a place in the top 5 at the moment. And with every game a must-win situation for the Knights, yesterday's gutsy 16-10 win over an enthusiastic if somewhat unlucky Rabbitohs side was full of merit. And in the conditions, you couldn't blame anyone who chose the comfort of home to a windswept Marathon Stadium.
When you're a younger bloke, you sort of you got up and listened to cancellations, but it was pretty wet out there. But we were, it was a tough game. We were happy to get the result in the end.
Sarge had a big game in the wet, as did captain Michael Hagan, who put Brad Godden in for try number 1. Godden was the hero of the first half and relished the opportunity of getting back on the paddock.
I had last week off and I was pretty keen to get out there today and get into them early, and it was a good start for me, yeah.
A little bit of individual skill in that second one?
Yeah, well, the kick come back to me and there wasn't much on, so I was just going to grab it through and try and get the drop out, but there was no one there, so...
As the mud and slush was being washed away last night, thoughts were turned to the task ahead, and it's huge. The Knights have away matches against Canterbury, Illawarra and Brisbane, who are in finals contention, while they host the Bears on Saturday week. Penrith, Manly and Canberra, who are also still in the race. Play of the night South match tonight on NBN at 10:30.
The cause of the problem was a break in a large 500mm trunk main at the top of Manuel Street near Lake Road, washing out a 1 by 2 metre hole half a metre deep. The torrent tore down the street through private yards, inundating gardens and damaging a newly installed pool along with its paving and fencing in one particular property. This was of little moment to several neighbourhood children who made the most of what was, for some, a very difficult situation. The water then flowed out into Main Road, causing traffic delays. Water Corporation engineers attribute the break to the recent rain, saying the fragile cast iron pipe would have been stressed by any ground movement. Because it's only one of several water mains in the area, the corporation was able to shut it down without interrupting supply, even though the repair job will not start until tomorrow. Meanwhile, Manuel Street remains barricaded.
The aim of the expo was to make Aboriginal students and unemployed people aware of the career and study opportunities available to them.
Well, hopefully just to raise awareness within the Aboriginal community that we do have opportunities out there in the big wide world, and hopefully a lot of the students will take this up and a lot of the unemployed as well.
Companies such as Qantas, the Department of School Education and the Water Board are keen to recruit Aborigines.
I think it just gives people ideas as to where they can go to apply for positions within organisations that do have an equal opportunity employment strategy.
These students from Gorokan High School on the Central Coast found the expo helpful.
I think it's very helpful for Aboriginal students because many of them like to drop out, but they have the opportunity to, get one step ahead and see, what career they would like to do.
Financial responsibilities without taking on something else. We've got to be assured.
Okay.
Чтобы эта штучка была видна. А меня куда? Куда я стала? Типа сторона. Фотография.
Right, okay. Count to 10.
Phew. Tell him to count to 10. Phew. Нет, дайте си.
This is one way to hunt down illicit drugs and contraband, searching a vessel from stem to stern. But it takes time and labour, as well as costing shipping companies valuable turnaround time. Now the Customs Service is asking the port's users to carry out their own surveillance and controls. Customs officers invited cargo handlers, stevedores, the Hunter Ports Authority and customs brokers to participate in Operation Frontline for some good reasons.
They must examine every piece of documentation and they must handle every piece of cargo. Whereas Customs cannot saturate it, the industry does.
The Customs Service says there are advantages in participating, including a boost in international prestige for shipping companies, clearly demonstrating support for contraband control. While some ports are regarded as high-risk gateways for contraband, Newcastle rates as an unlikely entry point. All the more reason to be vigilant.
Newcastle is a commercial port, and every commercial port in Australia should be very much aware of the problems posed by drug trafficking.
It's scenes like this that tumbled so easily from Hilary Fallon's memory into the pages of his book. And when you talk to the lively 74-year-old, it's easy to see why.
John Darling is my life, I'd say. From 1925, at 7 years of age, I lived on the property because my father was the first manager.
Hilary witnessed the first diggings of the John Darling shaft. The mine was his workplace for 38 years and his playground.
We used to play around these buildings when we were children. We even used to ride bicycles around the bathhouse, the huge bathhouse, inside the bathhouse, trying to see how far up the walls we could get our bicycles to go.
His book includes these vivid memories, the technical history of the mine, and accounts of the men who worked there. Packing a coal art collection he's created over the years for his book's launch today, Hilary admitted he felt it his duty to save a piece of history for future generations.
Who better than I can really write this book? It's been my life. I know all the people and those that have retired, and if I don't do something about it now, the stories of a lot of these old miners will be lost to posterity.